निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे, निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे, निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे, निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे। अरे नामुमकिन भी मुमकिन होवे करके देखो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे, बंधु निकल पड़ो रे, निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे।
Yesterday and today, police created mayhem in several villages close to the Koodankulam plant, in particular Idinthakarai, where the latest stage of protest was centered. Idinthakarai is barely 2 kilometers away from the plant, and next to it is a tsunami rehabilitation colony, which is less than 1 kilometer away. We are concerned about the fact that there has been absolutely no consultation with the people. The project is being imposed upon their will. The government has been completely non-transparent, has failed to share any relevant information about the safety issues that various people raised. The government did set up a committee last year, but it refused to meet any of the people, the representatives or the experts nominated by them. The same thing is true of the state government committee, which was later set up by Jayalalitha, the chief minister, just to get the project clear and will restart it in March. But above all, we are now concerned about the repression that has been unleashed there. Gross human rights violations, firings, and this comes on top of harassment over the past year. People here started a relay hunger strike at Idinthakarai in August. It has now completed 393 days to be precise, as of now. Every day, hundreds, sometimes thousands of people gather there and do not eat anything through the day. And this has been a totally peaceful protest. There has not been a single incident of violence. And yet, FIRs, hundreds of FIRs have been filed against a total of 55,700 people.
Because today it is Koodankulam, tomorrow it can be you or me, asking a question of the state. I think the repression of expression, commentary, critique that's happened in this country in the last couple of years, especially in the last 6 months, special reference to people who use the method of self-expression like cartoons to make political commentary, should also be as a subset taken very seriously. Because some of us protest by sitting, some of us protest by writing, some of us protest by making drawings, which are cartoons. So I think in this country today, democracy is fundamentally threatened by these actions, and we should, as a collective, make a protest. Today I am here with all of you to say that as a right to information activist, my fundamental concern is that governance becomes both answerable and accountable to its people. That correct information is placed before us. I'm a literate woman, I'm well aware of many things, but if you ask me, there are many things about governance as well as science and technology which may or may not be what I think it is. What is the problem for the government to place before us, in fact, what is happening within the atomic energy regulator, the plant in Koodankulam, and what the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board is saying? What is so secret? They say continuously that this is a plant put up for generating electricity. If so, why should there be security? Except to prevent me from getting radiation. I understand that. But what are the other needs for secrecy? Secrecy in case of security is true, is necessary, when security of the nation is concerned. Certainly not when you are generating electricity for my consumption. I certainly can ask, how are you consuming this electricity? Secondly, who decides in a democracy as to what we want or don't want? Have we explored, in fact, it's a larger issue, Have we explored, for instance, non-conventional energy and how much it will cost? Have we explored all that? When we ask these questions, are we going to be treated as enemies of the state? Who pays what costs? Is financial costs higher than the cost of lives or the cost of genetic modification of people, which will impact them for centuries? These are all questions an intelligent democracy will address instead of acting with violence. Actually, if one looks at it, sedition and treason are words which are being used very casually today in the country. Sedition is a very serious offence and must be treated seriously. But you can't hold methods of expression and methods of protest under the definition of sedition. I hope, friends, you all understand that I'm not talking to you as merely the press. I'm talking to you as citizens of this country. Tomorrow one of you will write something or one of you will show something and you will be considered people who have committed sedition. Because the government and the state is not happy with it. But that cannot be so. Sedition is definitely when you undertake something to destroy the credibility and integrity of the country. Yes, of course, it is sedition. If I give information to the enemy, if I do things that will harm the integrity of the nation, surely. But if I ask for information, I can't be treated as somebody who is indulging in sedition. In a democracy, dissent is a fundamental thing. If the whole parliament would be closed and shut down because they dissent, why can't people dissent? Why can't people say they don't agree? Should they naturally and automatically agree with every policy that the government has? And if dissent is going to be treated as sedition, hundreds of innocent people are going to be arrested. I don't know how many of you came to the Gandhi Peace Foundation, but Xavier Amma, who is an ordinary fisherwoman, came and spoke excellently, and I was amazed at the level of her intelligence and understanding, has been arrested and she's gone and we don't know where she's gone. Just because she said she didn't want the blood. Information, we've talked about it. It's not just a right to information act itself, whether there are amendments and whether the commission functions. We want the right to information act to thrive through every public action. We want this information. And this information, I think, is legitimate and people must get it. Peaceful protesters in this country of Mahatma Gandhi, peaceful protesters have a place. And if they don't like us, they have to contain us somewhere in their political argument and debate. Violence simply cannot be used against us. To go over it again, and just say, are people who ask us questions, people who are about their own safety, practicing sedition? People want to know details of what is happening within the atomic plant and may threaten their lives. Is this sedition? Even if they say they don't want the plant, is this sedition? And if people want to know, what will happen if a tsunami happens? Because a tsunami has already happened. Government says no tsunami has happened, you just have to see the tsunami colony when you go there. And you know it has happened. If they ask, what happens if there is a tsunami? Will Fukushima repeat itself? Is that sedition? Then people want to reassure themselves. Government should have sat down and reassured them over and over and over again. You take a vote just to gain that privilege to rule us, but that vote also obliges you to come and tell us hundreds of times that we don't understand why you think it is safe and why you don't think it is safe. We don't agree, there are political options open, but what has happened in the last few days in Koodankulam and Idinthakarai is completely unacceptable. This is not to say that there is a larger debate about the use of nuclear energy for creating electricity. That's a separate issue. But even the specific issue of locating it in Koodankulam is a matter which should be treated seriously and subjective. You don't know, I've gone through it previously. I met some young people when I was there about 2 months ago, and they said, are they forcing, the government forcing us to become part of another Tamil dealer? This is young people saying. Are we not Indians? Don't we have a right to express ourselves? Don't we have the right under the constitution to the same privileges and rights as any other citizen of this country? Serious questions being asked. So I think what has happened of innocent people being pushed into the sea, being beaten up. But I must also say that I got information from Deva Sahai, who was an ex-IAS officer, who was also part of this campaign against nuclearization, who's written to me an email where he says that most of the police were quite reasonable till there was one IG of the Southern Range who came and went amok. And then the police atrocities began. There's also information that many others who have been, women who have come and been with us, have all disappeared. So this is all through emails that we've got this information, and of course through the media, which has been showing very frequently what's happening. But I think today, the need for a dialogue is the most important thing. If we live in free India and we are equal citizens, the people who rule us and us are on the same page in the Constitution. If we demand the same rights as they do, then I think sitting and talking across the table is the only solution. Not booking people for sedition, not booking people for crimes that they have never committed, putting innocent people who don't understand the law in prison.
First is radiation, which is involved, which is given out at every step of the so-called nuclear fuel cycle. Right from uranium mining to fuel fabrication to reactor operation, maintenance, and so on. And as you know, radiation is an insidious poison because it's invisible, intangible, but extremely dangerous. It will invariably produce, over a period of time, cancer and genetic damage, against which there is no cure. And radiation is bound up at each, as I said, at each step, the nuclear fuel production cycle. Second, very important, even routine emissions and effluents from nuclear installations cause harm to people living close by. This is well documented by the International Commission on Radiological Protection. So we have evidence from 160 sites that morbidity and mortality rates rise among the population living close to nuclear plants compared. This is the second problem that is invariably tied up with nuclear power generation. Third, and very important, is the problem of long-lived nuclear wastes. These remain hazardous literally for tens of thousands of years, and science has not found a way of safely storing them, or leave alone of neutralizing them or getting rid of them, disposing them off in any way. Many countries in Europe have laws passed by parliaments to phase out nuclear power precisely because of the waste problem, the intractability of the waste problem. This is proved to be impossible to resolve with the given knowledge, the science and technology so far. The fourth problem is that of catastrophic accidents, such as core meltdowns, like you had in Fukushima, in Chernobyl, and earlier in 3 Mile Island. So we actually have now something like 15,000 reactor years of operation. That's the number of reactors multiplied by the number of years they've been running. And in this, the world has already seen 5 full core meltdowns. At this rate, the 400 reactors in the world could have one accident. One of them could have an accident every 8 years. Question to ask is this acceptable? Is this level of risk reasonable? And most people would say no, because even the economic costs of meltdown can be as high as the entire GDP of countries. This is from a German study commissioned by the German government, which estimated that if there is a single meltdown in Germany, the economic damage would be twice the volume of the entire GDP of the world's third largest economy. So these are very serious problems which are aggravated in many reactor designs, and we have reason to believe that Russian designs, all types of Russian designs suffer from serious flaws. Last year, after Fukushima, a special commission was set up in Russia to look at the intrinsic design problems of Russian reactors, and found that they suffered from 31 different flaws, including lack of adequate emergency cooling, including lack of very poor evacuation procedures even for plant employees, including the absence of any calculation of seismic or earthquake hazards and so on. We have no reason to believe that the Koodankulam reactors are free of these hazards. The very fact that the government refuses to disclose the contents of the agreement signed with Russia and has quietly transferred the liability for the first two reactors in Koodankulam means that the liability is not zero, that these reactors can go, there is a finite possibility of a grave accident. And this possibility is taken into account by insurance companies, and that's why not a single insurance company in the world is willing today to insure a nuclear reactor. No bank will finance a nuclear reactor. And this is a technology that is supported entirely by subsidies and huge amounts of state support, which is unaccounted for in many ways. One of the invisible ways in which the state support is transferred into a burden upon society is the future costs of decommissioning reactors. See, today when Nuclear Power Corporation sets up a reactor, it takes into account just the costs of construction, costs of fuel and so on. But a reactor, once it exhausts its economic life, cannot just be abandoned. It has to be, you have to remove active fuel, you have to then separate low-level waste and then entomb the reactor in a dome of concrete. This is called decommissioning. Decommissioning can cost up to half of what it costs to build a reactor. Who pays the cost? That is told onto society. Similarly, the costs of waste storage for thousands of years are transferred to society. These are future costs that we will be imposing upon many, many generations with no account being taken. But even if you assume that these costs are minimal, the actual raw costs of generation of electricity from nuclear fission are roughly twice as high or higher than the costs of producing electricity, let's say, from wind, or coal, or gas. So this is also extremely expensive technology, and nobody's found a way of limiting these costs. Just to give you an example, over the past decade, the capital costs of nuclear reactors have gone up by roughly 3 to 5 times. A reactor of the EPR variety made by the French company Arriva was estimated to cost $1,000 per kilowatt of capacity. Its current quoted cost is $6,600 per kilowatt. At this rate, it will produce electricity at roughly 30 rupees per unit, which is 6 times more than electricity from other sources, including coal, including wind. So these are enormously high costs, and they continue to rise. Now, what is happening in India is that for the first time, you today have a national level campaign, a national level movement against nuclear power generation. Earlier, all of these agitations were local. They were there in Karapu.
Prabhuji has said, none of the reports, including there was no EIA done, environmental impact assessment done. The safety analysis report, what is there has not been shared. In spite of the groups, the movement groups asking for it repeatedly. And the considerations, the scientific and technical problems, these are not unknown. These have been raised with the government, with the Nuclear Power Corporation of India, with AERB. In spite of that, they have not given any answers. Number one, any nuclear power site not only needs to be evaluated before the plant is built, but during the construction and after construction when the plant is operating. Because at any point of time, something happens, you need to know the site, that is the campus of the reactor building, and the neighborhood. In this area, the Koodankulam area, it is known for historically very near geologically intrusive volcanism. In the last, from 1998, that will make it around 14 years. In the last 14 years, there are 4 subvolcanic intrusions. That is, the volcanic intrusions didn't come up above the ground, but it came and stopped under the ground. 4 times during the last 15 years. And science do not have any concrete method to predict when it will happen, whether it will happen or not. So last 13 years, 14 years, 4 times it happened, including several tremors in March 2006, August 2011. Tremors took place. That indicates that whole area is tectonically active. That means volcanic activity, plate tectonic movement, because of which tsunami can take place. There is activity in that area, in the same area. Next, this area has been scientifically shown to be one of the thinnest in South India. The crust, the Earth's crust is the soil layer, the rock layer on which all of us construct building or construct cities, construct flyovers. This is the thinnest crustal area in the whole of South India and possibly the whole of India. It has been, some areas have been shown to be less than 1.5 kilometers, whereas the standard crustal thickness is 40 kilometers. Close to the sea it is 20 kilometers, 10 kilometers. So this is one of the reasons why this volcanic activity, tectonic activity is also taking place. Because the molten rock, which is called magma, the magma region, is very close to the surface. And this is also shown by, this is again, South India's highest heat flow, crustal heat flow. That means the amount of heat from the molten rock that comes above is highest, at least in South India, that has been measured, except in the Himalayan zone. Himalayan zone is very volcanically, it's zone 5. So these are critical issues which have been pointed to the scientific committee. Again, this is a karst region all around. That means this zone is a limestone region. Based on limestone, this is lying on limestone. And probably many of you know that in Mexico, southern Mexico, when limestone regions are there are a large number of cenotes, there's sinkholes, underground caves, and this is a natural characteristics of limestone zone, karst region's limestone zone. Because when rain falls, it eats away limestone, it creates large amount of underground cavities. And this zone is a limestone zone, it's a karst region. And this has been shown in the areas, 3 clear areas around that, which is Muruthakulam, Radhapuram and Palnayarkulam, which is around this area, which have been shown to be similarly active. I'll just go through quickly about the site, why people are so agitated with knowing all this, and then 1 or 2 quick points on the Russian reactor itself. Then, in tsunami case, people there have seen the tsunami with their own eyes, they have experienced this. We have gone in the sea, we have gone very close to the water intake of Koodankulam. And you can see, forget about tsunami waves, even a big wind-driven wave, normally winds drive waves, even a big wind-driven wave can come into the water intake and inundate that. It's, as per their own claim, the tsunami wall, their own claim is 8 meters high. Whereas, many people, I don't know how many of you have seen photographs or have been there, in Koodankulam, Vivekananda Rock Memorial is now dwarfed. There is a Tirunelveli statue, which is more than 120 feet or so. The tsunami wave reached something like 25 to 26 meters during the 2004 tsunami. And the tsunami wall constructed is just 8 meters. And people know that, people have experienced the last tsunami in that region. The potential, this is not only tsunami from Java or Sumatra region, there is a very great potential for near-field tsunami. Scientific studies have established there are 2 slump formations which are underwater, seabed, loose deposit of silt, large amount of silt, millions of tons of silt which can anytime slide. And that kind of slide can create a tsunami which will be the Gulf of Mannar. There are 2 such big slumps which scientists have identified. One is called East Comorin and next is called Colombo slump. So these 2 slumps, after the tsunami took place, there was no study to see what is the present status of these slumps. Because at any point of time, if any one of these slumps slides down, because these are very loose deposits of millions of tons of silt, they can cause a tsunami a few kilometers from the planet side. So that's a possibility which lies there. But the AERB, the Department of Atomic Energy, NPCIL, all of them says there is no possibility. Now they have accepted the slumps are there. It remains, it lies there in the Gulf of Mannar, but there is no possibility of tsunami. That means they have some divine power to prevent all this. In this area, there is and all accidents, major accidents have taken place because of coolant failure. Because of failure to keep the reactor core cold or cool. And in this area, there is a great shortage of fresh water. You cannot, in a normal situation, you cannot cool the reactor core with seawater. Because immediately there will be an incrustation of salts and it will become unusable. What has happened in Fukushima. So you need fresh water to cool the reactor and the reactor when it comes out of the reactor. The third stage, one can use seawater. In the third stage, loop, which is a heat exchanger. That seawater is being used. But there is hardly any source of fresh water. The plant is depending on desalination plants. And as per their own claim, this desalination plant will give them 36 hours and some minutes of cooling capacity. Just 36 hours. Just recollect Fukushima. For how many days, because of the power failure, for how many days and weeks, there was no possibility of running the cooling water, even the seawater. Here, you have 36 hours of fresh water for cooling the reactor. And it has to be noted that cooling is required even if you can shut down the reactor. Because even if a reactor is shut down, technical shutdown, 6 to 7% of the total heat generated keeps on getting generated because of the radioactive material present there. So this is a major requirement of any nuclear power plant, and this is not there. And the reactor themselves, the VVR 1000 reactors, in fact there are many flaws, but I am not going into that. I will quickly end by this. One of the major points, the critical part of the reactor which contains the radioactive material, the fuel elements and the daughter elements which are created. This is contained within the reactor pressure vessel. It is a very thick special steel vessel. And by all designs, it should not have any joints, either weld or any kind of joint. As per their own admission, Atomic Energy Regulatory Board Bulletin 2008, they said there will be 2 joints, welding joints. And as you can understand, any joint is the weakest point of any containment vessel. So these are major concerns of people, and I will end by saying that now you can think of yourself just for a minute that you are there, or that reactor is being within 30 kilometers from where you reside, whether you will be concerned, whether you will go in procession and ask question to the AIRB and the Government of India and our Prime Minister, who is certifying even without checking. So whether the people of Koodankulam were agitating without violence for last so many years, it's not just 1 year. 1989 the protest started. The protest recently intensified after Fukushima, but protest started in 1989. So whether you will be in a similar situation or not, or are these people crazy, they are insane, they are doing this just with some foreign money, getting killed, getting no food for their children for days, getting the milk of their children and water getting denied, entering the village. All this they are doing because some foreign NGOs are giving them some dollars.
निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे अरे नामुमकिन भी मुमकिन होवे करके देखो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे अरे नामुमकिन भी मुमकिन होवे करके देखो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे बंधु निकल पड़ो रे राही निकल पड़ो रे